Are you writing a book and you're looking for some information, some tips, some resources that you can use to help make your writing be the strongest that it can be? Or have you already written your book and you're looking for some more information on self-publishing? Hi, my name is Holly Jo Flora, and that's what we're going to be talking about today on this video, writing your book and self-publishing. Now, last week I posted a video about my new book. This is Same God, New You, and I shared in that video that I have received so many messages asking me, Holly Jo, how did you write this book? How did you publish this book? So I decided I would put all of the information that I have learned in the process of writing and self-publishing, and I'd make a video out of it. But before we jump into that information, I have two things to share with you. One, last week I told you that I have gotten a lot of text messages from people asking, Holly, how are book sales going? How are you doing? Have you sold a lot? How many have you sold? And I know the people who have asked this, and you may be wondering how many books we have sold. And I don't mind sharing that with you at all. I know the people who have asked me that are rooting for me. They're cheering me on. They want this to go well for me, and I appreciate that. So I want to let you know that as of today, it's been 2 weeks since I published Same God, New You, and we have so far sold 283 books, which is amazing to me. I didn't know really what to expect for book sales because I did no marketing or publicity for the book before it was published. I kept it secret, and I thought this may take a while to sell some books, but y'all have been amazing, and I really appreciate it, and I thank you so much for buying Same God, New You. I hope that it is helping you. I hope it is blessing you. I've gotten a lot of messages from people sharing with me which one is their favorite devotion or which devotion really connected with them. And you've also shared some struggles with me, things that you are going through, and I want to thank you for trusting me with that information. And I promise you, I've got a list going for all the prayer requests that people have sent to me. I am praying for you. So if you're reading the book, or even if you haven't read the book, if you want to share a prayer request with me, I will not mention it to anyone. I will keep it private. But if you will go to my website, it's hollyjoflora.com, and on my site there's a place where it says connect with Holly Jo. You can send me a message. I would be honored for you to share with me whatever God has put on your heart. It can be about the book, it can be something that you're going through, and I promise I'll pray for you. The second thing that I want to share with you is when I was making a list on what I have learned with writing and publishing, the list was very long. Way too long to put into one video. So I've decided to break this information apart into 2 separate videos. So today we're going to talk about some tips and resources that I used in writing my book, and then next week I'll share the second part, which is all going to be about self-publishing. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. You don't want to miss next week's video. And for today's video and for next week's, I've tried to think of everything that I could think of that would be beneficial and helpful for you. But if I've left out something that you're wondering about, please just leave it in the comments below. If it's something that I know, I promise I will answer you. But if I don't know the answer, I'll put a comment that says, I really don't know. But I want to be helpful, so if you think of something that I haven't thought of, please just let me know. But let's dive into what I learned with writing this book. And the first thing I want to share is that I gave myself a rule that when I sat down to write, I wrote. And you may think, yeah, that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of times when we sit down, we're easily distracted, or at least I am. Like, I want to look at my phone, or if the ideas aren't coming, I want to get on my email, or I want to do something, make my grocery list, just so I feel like I'm being productive, but I'm not actually working on what I set down to work on. So when I sat down to write this book, I made sure I just started writing, even if I felt like writing about what was next on the docket or not. I just started writing. And I know this might seem kind of blah to say, but it's kind of like word vomit. Anything I thought of, I let it come out and just wrote it. It didn't have to make sense. It didn't have to all go together. I didn't care about the wording, the phrasing, the punctuation. I just wrote. Because you can always go back and edit. And a lot of what I'm going to be sharing about today is about editing. I did a ton more editing than I thought that I was going to do when I started writing. It took a lot of editing to get it to a point where I felt like, I think this is as good and as strong as I can make it. But you can't edit something if you don't have anything to work with, if you don't have anything written down. So when I sat down, I typed. I just kept typing until I felt, either I ran out of time, what I had allotted for writing for that day, or until I felt like I was done. I just kept writing and I did not stop. And that was helpful to me because sometimes we just got to get started. If you try to make it perfect or you try to wait till you're in the perfect mood to write, you may never write anything. So just get started. Sit down, start writing. Next thing that I want to share with you is what I mentioned just a little bit ago was editing. Now in total, I would say I did a complete book edit 8 times. I edited 8 times, and I want to go through the process of the different ways that I edited my book. Now I told you that first time writing through everything, it was a jumbled mess. It was not good, but the bones were there. The thoughts were there. I just needed to flesh things out. I needed to take away things. They needed to be reordered. And so that took a lot of editing. Now, the first time that I edited, the way that I did that was I just read through what I had written. And anything that immediately just jumped out at me, like a misspelled word, or I left out a word, or a typo, I would go ahead and correct that. And I just did a read through and I fixed what I noticed just off the bat. Then I waited a few days because it's amazing how you will read something and be like, it's perfect, it's done. And then you wait a few days and go back and read it and you're like, oh my goodness, how could I have missed that? I don't know, and I can't explain how our brains do that, but we do. So many times I would read something and think, oh, it's done. And then I'd go back and read it and be like, this is a mess. So in between your edits, give yourself a few days of a break just to kind of clear your mind, do something different, and then go back and read it again. And it's amazing what you will find. So the first edit was just a quick, anything that I noticed, fix that. Now the second time that I edited, I wrote my book in Word document. I made a list of words that I like to use over and over. And let me tell you, I love adverbs. I love adjectives, but adverbs, I love some adverbs. And so as I was just reading through it quickly, I would notice that I keep on hearing a certain word over and over. And for me, it was the word truly. I truly love the word truly. So I went into my Word document, and the tab that says find, where you can search for something in your document. I made a list, and I'll share my list with you. Your list is going to be different because I have found that we all have certain words that we love to use, like truly for me. But your list needs to have those words on it. But then I think there are certain words on this list that we all typically use maybe too much. So I made a list. My list was these words. All of, because I found that I would say all of the people instead of all the people. I put of in there and it's not needed. So I looked up all of, so, that, very, now. I started so many sentences with now, comma, so I had to go through and get rid of most of those nows. Then, just, and then these are ones that I use a ton. Wonderful, absolutely, and truly. And I just did a word search to find those words. Now, truly, okay, this is a devotional. It has an introduction and 40 devotions. I used the word truly 43 times. It's a bit too much. It's truly a bit too much. So when I would find these words just being very repetitive, I did one of two things. Sometimes the word didn't even need to be there. If I took it out, the sentence was just as strong, and sometimes it flowed so much better. sometimes it needed to be there. But if I had already used truly, I needed a new adverb. So it forced me to be more creative and expand. You get that thesaurus out and you think of different words that you could use in place of the word that is your go-to word. So that's another tip that I can tell you about for that second round of edits, excuse me. That second round of edits, I used the find tool and I changed a bunch of the words, and then I took out a bunch of the words just to make them not be repetitive and not be too long. And the next time I edited, this is the third time, is I had my Word document, I clicked where it has it read aloud to you, and I would follow along but have the word robotic voice read it to me. And that was helpful because even though he reads like this with not much feeling, to hear what I've written helped me. Does it flow? Does it make sense? Did I leave out a word? Because a lot of times we know what we were writing and we subconsciously put in a word in the sentence because we meant it to be there, but we didn't actually put that word. We skipped a word. And when I had the robot voice read it back to me, it helped me to catch those, to think, oh, I left out a word, and I'd pause it, go type that word back in, or I'd hear it and think, that doesn't flow very well, or that doesn't make sense like I thought it would. So that was helpful. That was the third round of edits. Now, after that third round, I sent my book to beta readers. Now, I had 8 beta readers, and I chose my husband because he's super helpful, so I asked would he read it, even though this is a women's devotional, but he's in a lot of these devotions. So one, I wanted his approval of, is it okay to share what I shared about him? And 2, he's great at finding punctuation, misspelled words, things like that. He's really strong at. So I asked my husband to be a beta reader, asked my sister to be a beta reader, my sister-in-law, and 5 of my friends. And this was unbelievably helpful. So if you are one of my beta readers, they're listed in the back of the book, and you're watching this video, thank you. Thank you so much. Your feedback was incredible. And what I loved is I really didn't know what to expect. When they read the book, it was exciting to know that people are reading it. What do they think? But it was also like nerve-wracking because you're like, what do they think? And I told all of my beta readers, please be honest with me. If you notice anything, now obviously if it's grammar, punctuation, whatever, please let me know that, but also the content. How does this make you feel? Do you like this one? Do you have a recommendation of maybe something I could change? What's the feedback? I really want to know. And one thing that surprised me was how different the feedback for each beta reader was. Now, some things, and I'm going to talk about this more in a minute, some things they all, or most of them, would mention. But they each had their own strengths, which is so helpful. One of my beta readers, Robin, she is incredible at taking a sentence and maybe taking out 2 or 3 words and moving them. She would just take them and move them in the sentence, and it made the sentence flow so much better. And she would really clean up just the structure of the sentences, which was so helpful. I had beta readers who, like my sister, is great with grammar and punctuation and also the content. So she gave me kind of a smorgasbord of everything that was very helpful. But some of the beta readers didn't give me any notes for grammar or punctuation or sentence structure, anything like that. They gave me feedback more on the content, like, I really like how you worded this, or this part, I think I know what you mean, but it's not quite clear. It doesn't make sense to me. Or, they'd be honest and say, I don't like this part. I will never forget, the first message I got back was from my friend Taylor, and she was the first one to finish the book. And she sent me such sweet notes, wonderful comments, but there was one thing, and she put it at the end, and she said, Holly, and she mentioned the devotion and said, I'm going to send you a screenshot of what I think you need to do to a certain part of this devotion. And she sent me a picture, and she had a big red X through like 2.5 paragraphs. And that was the first time that I realized that I'm very tied to what I have written. And for this, it's not fictional. This is all mostly about my life. And I didn't realize how very tied to what I had written I was until she sent me that text. And my first reaction was, what? Like, I know I had said, please be honest with me. And I want them to be. I wanted their honest opinion. But when she marked out 2.5 paragraphs, I just felt like, what? This is very important information. How dare her? But she said, Holly, I'll be honest. I think if you take out this section, it would flow so much better. And I feel like you've already made the point. It's kind of redundant. So I went to my computer and I just deleted that whole section that she did. And I'm still like, she's completely wrong. This is wonderful information that is needed. And I read through the devotion without that section, 2.5 paragraphs. And when I finished the devotion, I was like, oh, she's right. She's right. It's so much stronger without that being there. And that was my first taste of, I need to listen to my beta readers. Now, sometimes people gave me feedback and I really felt adamant about it. I was like, no, I need to keep that. I need it to be there because either I really feel God leading me to leave that in, or it feels like it's part of the personality of the book. I don't want to take it away. But I would really think about it and pray about it before I made the decision to not go with what they recommended. But there were a lot of times that they made recommendations and I had to say, okay, what I feel like I want to say isn't always what people need to read. And that was a big lesson for me because I started writing or editing with the reader in mind instead of having me in mind. Because if I'm writing just for me to read it and for me to say it, then I just need to write a journal, a diary, and not let anyone else read it. And it was very therapeutic for me just to get out all of my feelings on so many different subjects. But then I took a lot of it out because even though it was helpful for me to go ahead and write it and for me to get it out there, I don't think it would have been helpful for everyone to read that. And my beta readers really helped me with that. Other than the first one with Taylor, that really sticks out to me is one of my beta readers, Julie. She sent me feedback on one devotion and she said, Holly, I don't know if it's because I know who this person is that it makes me feel a little like nervous that person will be offended, even though I didn't name any names. She said, I just wonder in this devotion, if you took that part out, I think it would be stronger and it would still get the point across. Maybe you should just delete that. And in this devotion, I had used 2 different examples to really try to drive home the point. And so she said, just leave that first example. That's all that's needed. And I felt very connected to the part that she wanted taken out. And I'll be honest, the portion of that devotion was about a lady who really hurt me. And yes, it was a good example for that devotion, but I think Julie, when she was reading it, she could feel that I still had a lot of bitterness towards that woman. And it's hard when you feel that bitterness for it not to come across in your writing. And I think she felt it. And I didn't want to take that part out. I really did not. I wanted to leave it in the devotion. So I sent a text to all of my beta readers and I said, someone just gave me some feedback that perhaps I should take out this part of the devotion, that it'd be stronger without it. What do you think? And one of the beta readers sent back, I like it either way, it's your call. But everyone else sent back, I think that part needs to go. And I was like, no, I wanted it to stay. But God had to remind me again, everything I want to say is not what everybody needs to read. And I took it out. And I know it was the right decision to take it out. Now, my pride and my personality always, when I get to that part, I think, oh, I wish that part was still there. But I know that it shouldn't be. So beta readers are extremely helpful. So if you have friends that you trust, and it's amazing, the feedback that you get back, it's going to be different. And I hope it won't be overwhelming. Like, I would not ask 20 people to be your beta readers because that would be overwhelming. You may get opposite feedback about the same chapter or the same subject and not know what to do with that. But it was helpful to me in that they each brought me something different, their own strengths, their own feedback. But it was always helpful, especially like in that devotion I just shared with you about, if I got the same feedback from, I guess it was from 6 of them, it lets me know, okay, when people buy this book, they're probably going to feel the same way. And I don't want someone getting hung up on a chapter or hung up on a devotion, in my case, and not listen to what the real point that I'm trying to convey to them is. All they feel is my hurt and my bitterness. So beta readers, so helpful. So once I got all of my beta readers' feedback back, and here's a tip for beta readers as well. Once you send your book to your beta readers, don't touch it. Because when they start sending back feedback, if you've been working on the book since they got it, when you go back and you read their notes, it may not fit anymore because you changed something. So when you send it to your beta readers, let them know, if you can get it back to me in a month or however long, then go back and do those edits. So I got back all of the beta reader information, and then I did my 4th round of edits to the book with their feedback in mind. And like I said, I used a lot of their feedback. Some of it I didn't use. But that goes back into you being the writer. You can decide what you think needs to stay and what you really do need to listen to your beta readers about and plug that into your edits. So my 5th round of edits, I watched a video and it talked about Hemingway app. And I thought, oh, okay, this is an app. So I went into the app store and I couldn't find it. It's not an app, even though the website address says HemingwayApp.com. This was such a useful resource, helpful tool. So what I did was, when you go into HemingwayApp.com, you'll see some writing on the screen, and it took me a minute to figure out, well, okay, I don't know what this is. What you do is you're going to select, highlight everything that they have written on the screen. Delete it. Then go into your book, take a chapter or even a paragraph, however much you want to use. Sometimes I did a paragraph, but a lot of times I would do an entire devotion, which for whatever genre you're writing may be a chapter. I would copy out of my Word document the devotion or the chapter. I would paste it onto that screen of HemingwayApp.com. And once you paste it, you push enter. It highlights things in different colors, and you can see on the right side of the screen they've got a key to let you know, this lets you know how many of these words, this color is for adverbs, this lets you know this color is for your sentence is way too long. And there's more than that, but those are the 2 things that helped me the most. Like I said, I love adverbs. And HemingwayApp.com took how many words I had in that paragraph or in that entire devotion / chapter, and it would tell me if I had way too many adverbs for that amount of words. And many times I had way too many. So I had to go back and delete some of them. They weren't needed. It also showed me that I had a lot of run-on sentences. So that helped me to get creative. Like, is there something redundant in this sentence? Like, are there words that just need to go? It's making the sentence way too long. I just need to take them out. Or should I make this sentence into 2 sentences? And it really helped me to think through purposeful writing. You're really making decisions on almost every sentence of, this is too long, or this is too wordy, or there's too much description in this. I'm going to wear out the reader. So look up that tool, HemingwayApp.com. It was so helpful. So I used that for my 5th round of edits. Okay, after I used HemingwayApp.com, I got online, and now my book is a Christian book. This is a devotional for women. Now, you may think, I'm not writing a devotional. I'm writing a sci-fi book or a romance novel, and that's fine. I think these tips are going to still be helpful no matter the genre, but I went online and I looked up a Christian editor, and I came across lots of choices, lots of price brackets. So look up your genre for your editor. And there's so many different types of editors. There's just the proofreader who is going to check your spelling, your grammar, your punctuation. They're not going to help at all with content. There are some that they're an editor that really helps you with your developmental, like getting different ideas, how you want to describe it, plotting out your book. And then there's like a line editor where they kind of do a mixture of both, where they're doing the proofreading, but they're also helping you with the flow, and this doesn't come across right, or you should kind of reconstruct the sentence, stuff like that. So I found a Christian editor, and it so happened her first name was Holly as well, and I was like, it's a sign from God. My name's Holly, her name's Holly, she is going to be my editor. So she had me send her the first 20 pages of my book, and she edited them and sent them back to me so that I could see her editing style, because every editor has a different style of what they're going to bring to it. I read through her edits and I really liked them. So I hired her, and with my editor, I paid half of it up front, and then when she finished, I paid her the other half for the editing. And she really helped me on 3 main things. I had a problem with commas in a certain situation, like in a certain type of sentence, I wasn't using the comma correctly, and she caught most of those. But from seeing how she would correct those for a couple of times, it helped me to realize, oh wait, I'm not doing this correctly. So there were a couple that she missed, because editors are human, and that's a lot of words. It's a lot to cover. And so as I read through, I found a couple places that she didn't correct that needed to be, but I had learned from her. So it was very beneficial, the edits that she did. So she fixed those comma mistakes. Also, I have 3 quotes that need to be referenced at the end of my book, and I didn't know how to do that. And she helped me with that, so that was huge. And then also, for my book, there's a lot of scripture. And she helped me that when I put the scripture passage, if it had the word Lord, I needed to put that in all caps. I didn't know that. And after she pointed that out, I thought, is that correct? Because it wasn't that way in my Bible. I went back and looked through all of my devotions that I have, and she was right. Every time they had like a key verse, the word Lord was in all caps. And so that was helpful to me, because since I've never written a book before, this is a self-published book, but I don't want it to stand out as a self-published book. I want it to, hold its own as much as it can with other traditionally published books that are published by publishing houses. So she was helpful to me, like in that when someone read and they knew, oh, Lord is supposed to be all in caps because they've done this for a while, or they're a publisher. I didn't know that. So she was helpful in that. So when you choose your editor, there's going to be things that they help you with that maybe you weren't even looking for, and it's going to make your book more professional. It was very, very helpful to me. So if you are wanting an editor, just look up someone that's in your genre and let them do a sample edit, and you can decide, I think it's a good fit, or I don't want to use them, and you can go with someone else. So my 6th round of edits was using my editor's feedback. Now, when you get the editor's feedback, you may want to use every suggestion, every edit. I used a lot of my editor's changes, especially if it was grammatical. But some of the edits I didn't use because I didn't want to change that part. It wasn't that it was incorrect the way that I had it. It was just a different way that the editor would write that or word it. So, you have to decide what you want it to sound like, read like, and so you can decide on each edit if you want to use those or not. And so that was my 6th round of edits. Now, after I used my editor's feedback and made those edits, I thought, okay, this book is done. It has to be done. I'm gonna order a proof, and I've got them sitting over here. Let me grab these. So I used KDP to order my proof copies, and I'll talk more about that company next week. But I ordered my first proof book, and KDP, they put this gray banner around the book, the band, and you can see how I did my proofreading. So the book came, I proofread it, and it's amazing what you catch when you are reading your book in a different format. I don't know why that our brain is this way, but when you look at something over and over, like on your computer screen, you may miss something because you've just gotten so used to seeing it that way. But then when you see it in a brand new format where it's different. It's just different. You notice things that you didn't notice before. And as I was proofreading, I noticed things about the formatting, so I would write that on a little Post-it note tab and put that on the page. But a lot of these are edits where maybe I had an echo in the sentence, where I used the same word 2 times in a sentence and I didn't catch it before until I saw it in the book. Because when you have the lines that you're reading, and maybe you have the word house, and right underneath it again you have the word house, you catch that. Maybe you can change one of the houses to home, so it's house, home. So things like that. Or it's amazing the stuff that you still missed through all those rounds of editing, that when you get your proof copy, you find. So my 7th round of edits, we're using my proof copy. And so I changed those things, and I also changed the size of my book. For a hardcover, this is the hardcover of my book. It has to be 8.5 by 5.5 with KDP. So I thought, well, if that's the size it has to be for a hardcover, I'll just get the paperback in the same size. But when the proof came, I don't know why. I think the hardcover, it adds a little thickness to it, and this didn't. It felt too thin to me for the size that it was. Now, there are a lot of books that are the same number of pages and are this size, and that's fine. But just for me, when I was holding it, I thought, I don't think this is the right size. So once I made those edits, that was the 7th round of edits, I ordered another proof copy, but I went with a different size. I went with an 8 by 5 for my paperback. So the size is different, and I thought, surely I am done editing. I'm just gonna check the formatting and the size of the book, check the cover. No. Look at this. More edits! And a lot of these, it wasn't something that I had that was wrong. It's just as I was reading it, I thought of a better way to say it. Or I thought those words aren't needed, I'm just gonna take them out. So some of these are for formatting and different things like that. But again, some of them are edits. So my 8th round of edits was from using my 2nd proof copy. And my husband really said, Holly, at some point, you have to be done. So that's another tip. At some point, you have to be done. I'm sure if I read the book again now, I would notice things that I want to change again. And I think that's just part of writing. And we're people. I hope I caught all of my mistakes, but I'm human and I'm gonna make some mistakes. And the rewording, the editing, it can go on forever if you don't just at some point say, I think this is as good as I can get it. And so after that 8th round of edits, I published the book, and that's what we have today, is the finished copy. Just want to mention this about the book cover, and this I know isn't about the writing, but this doesn't fit in next week's video, so I did want to mention this. When you are choosing your book cover, I hope that you're able to pick something that you like. I mean, it's your book, so I hope you are happy and pleased with the cover, but keep in mind that you need to have your book fit in with the other books in your genre, but also stand out. So it's a fine line that you're trying to walk on, having it fit in but also stand out. So a good idea is once you have your book cover, before actually you design your book cover, type in wherever you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get yours, type in, search your genre, and look at all the thumbnails. Is there a common color scheme that you see over and over? Is there a common theme for the subject of the cover? For me, for devotionals, for women's devotionals, I looked at tons of book covers of women's devotionals, and I saw a nature theme, which I love willow trees. So when I saw that nature theme, I thought, I know exactly what I want on the cover. I want to put a willow tree. And so let me show you this short clip that my kids and I made the other day when we were playing outside. I have 4 willow trees in our yard that my husband planted for me. So let me show you this clip. Here is the first willow tree that we planted 8 years ago, and the second willow tree that we planted 6 years ago, and the third willow tree that we planted 4 years ago. And the 4th willow tree, this is our baby willow that we planted last year. This one is a yellow willow, and we cannot wait to see what it's gonna look like. So when I saw the nature themed covers, I knew what I wanted to put on my cover. Once you have your cover designed, shrink it down to thumbnail size and compare it to the other books that are being sold in your genre? Does it fit in with those covers, but does it also stand out? So that's just another tip, just something for you to think about. Now, next week's video, it's gonna be, like I said, about companies that I used, about how to get your ISBNs, anything that I can think of that might be helpful to you with self-publishing, I'll put in that video. So please make sure you come back next week, subscribe to my channel, and if this video has been helpful, please give it a thumbs up, like the video, and if you have any questions, any comments, leave those below, and I look forward to talking to you next week.